Super Mario Bros. Wonder has only been out for a little bit more than a week now, and already it's being praised as one of, if not the best 2D Mario game ever made. The levels are incredibly inventive with the Wonder Flower, the power-ups are all a blast to use, and you can even become a ball. What more could you want? Well, as it turns out, this game is actually not perfect. Call me a hater all you want, but there are quite a few problems I thought the game had during my playthrough. So today, I thought it would be fun to list out my nitpicks for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now keep in mind that these aren't necessarily always big problems. Trust me, I don't have nightmares about Search Party Pipe Park. It's Puzzling Park that keeps me up at night. But yeah, don't take all of these too seriously, I still absolutely love my time with this game. And just like my other nitpick videos, I also made a community post asking for your all's nitpicks as well, so the first half of this video will be my nitpicks, and the second half will be dedicated to the most interesting nitpicks from that post. As always, I don't agree with all the ones I picked, but I just looked for the ones that I think will have the most interesting discussion. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. At 200k, I'm going to rank every 2D Mario level, and let's jump right into my first nitpick. Let's start off with one that I mentioned in my previous video, that being the fact that coins are essentially useless. All they're able to do for you is give you an extra life once you collect 100. Now that may sound kind of good, but let's just say you aren't really going to need them. Now yes, this is how coins always worked in 2D Mario games, but that doesn't mean it can't be changed. Mario Odyssey, for example, has the absolute perfect coin system. Coins were used in the game's stores, which allowed you to buy moons, life up hearts, and costumes. You would also lose 10 coins every time you died, making dying feel like a bigger punishment while not needing to ever go through the tedium of a game over. Now Mario Odyssey's coin system is sort of half adopted to Wonder. This game does have shops, but they only accept purple coins. They can be used to buy badges, Wonder Seeds, and standees. Oh, and also 1-ups. Yeah, sure, let's just make normal coins even more useless. I am happy they at least made purple coins have a good reason to collect them, but I feel like regular coins could have had a decent use too. Maybe switch the standees over to being purchased with coins. It doesn't really matter, anything would be better than nothing. A consequence of normal coins being useless is that the two badges about giving coins, Coin Reward and Rhythm Jump, are both basically useless. Coin Reward just feels like a filler badge, and while Rhythm Jump is super cool conceptually, it's just never worth it to use. So yeah, I would like normal coins to be a bit more useful in the next game. While we're talking about coins too, I kind of wish the purple coin cap was more than just 999. There were several points in my playthrough where I maxed it out, so I would like the cap to be closer to 9,999 instead. Don't you just hate having too much money? I mentioned badges before, and wouldn't you know it, I have a minor nitpick about them too. More specifically, it has to do with the game's 4 expert badges, though I don't really count the sound off one. These are very different from the other badges in the game since they aren't really made to help you, rather give you an extra challenge. As a recap for what each of them do, Jet Run makes you run extremely fast and also gives you a second to run on the air after going off a ledge. Once you start running though, you can't stop, making this very difficult to use inside any level that's not just a flat plane to the end. Spring Feet makes you constantly jump, and while you can jump higher than you normally can, this is still harder to use due to the fact that it'll make enemies significantly harder to dodge. And finally, Invisibility. I mean, what do you think it does? So yeah, each of these do add a fun challenge for each of the game's levels, but my problem is that there's really no reason to complete a stage with one of these equipped. They're only really good for self-imposed challenges, which don't get me wrong, I do like a ton, as I always give myself challenges when I replay Odyssey, but they really didn't have to be self-imposed. I think if you beat a stage using one of these badges, that badge should be added to that level on the menu. Now no, I would not want this to be a 100% requirement, but giving players just a little symbol to show that they did something challenging would make a lot more people do it. Since I'm an insane person, I would probably try going for all 3 badges on every stage, which would significantly increase this game's playtime with essentially no effort. This is something they could definitely add in an update though, so hopefully they do. Another thing that would significantly increase this game's replayability would be adding a best time on every stage. Now some levels, namely the Wiggler races and KO arenas, do have this, which I think is great. It makes people want to go back and try for a better time, even if they don't need it to beat the game. So my question is, why not do the same for every stage? 3D Land and World both kept track of your best time on each stage, and I like that feature a ton. I remember even speedrunning a few levels in 3D Land because of that feature. I love the level you can beat in like 6 seconds, that's peak Mario right there. Adding this in would be especially nice in Wonder, considering the levels no longer have a timer anymore, so you can't just use the in-game timer to keep track of your best time on your own. This would also have the extra benefit of giving players a reason to use the Jet Run badge in more levels. Even if they don't add the badge thing I suggested, adding a best time would still encourage people to use Jet Run more since it's all about going fast. Really, I think they should add both the badge thing and best time to levels, as both would make the levels significantly more replayable. As for another challenge-related topic, Challenge Mode. My personal favorite feature introduced in New Super Mario Bros. U was the Challenge Mode. This would have you partake in several challenges, whether it be to beat a stage fast enough, beat a stage without coins, or even more specific things like trying to stay balanced on a platform. Each challenge level also also had different medals you could earn based on how well you did completing them. Getting gold on every challenge is legitimately very difficult, by far the hardest thing in any mainline Mario game, including the 3D titles. But that's what made them so much fun. I personally loved completing all of them, honestly much more than the main game itself. That's why I was crushed to see that Mario Wonder just doesn't have these challenges. I personally think they should be in every 2D Mario game. It's up there with in-level collectibles like Star Coins as one of the best additions to the series. If they ever decide to do DLC for this game, I could definitely see this being what they add, so I'm really hoping for that. Just based on my Switch playtime, I had about 50 hours in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe just from 100%ing the main game in challenge mode. I didn't even get to Luigi U yet. But in comparison, I only have 11 or so hours in Wonder and I'm already done. So yeah, adding a challenge mode would also add a significant amount of playtime to this game as well. Moving away from nitpicks focused on replayability, let's talk about one of my two bigger ones. Personally, I think the multiplayer is worse than the new Super Mario Bros. Games. In Mario Wonder, you can't interact with the other players at all. You can't pick them up, jump on their head, ground pound on them, or heck even push them around. The only real way to interact with other players is by affecting the environment around them. Now I personally think that being able to interact with people is what made multiplayer so fun. Throwing your friends into enemies, ground pounding them into pits is really the main reason I found multiplayer so appealing. Maybe that's why I have no friends to play with. Now I do definitely understand why some people would like the new system. They probably got bullied in the previous games and don't want to be the loser again. So I would make this an option you can switch between, sort of like enabling and disabling Team Attack in Smash Bros. Now with that said, the current multiplayer is still fun. I just think it could be slightly better. Alright, enough about things that kinda suck. Let's talk about something that's just awful. I hated the search party levels in this game. Luckily there are only 3 and the last one is actually okay, but those first 2 are probably my least favorite parts of the entire game. Essentially, your goal is to find 5 Wonder Tokens. That doesn't sound so bad, until you realize that the only challenge here is finding invisible blocks. A majority of these levels are dedicated to you just repeatedly jumping around until you eventually hit a hidden block that leads to the token. This is just not fun to do at all. It reminds me a lot of very bad Mario Maker levels. Now I get that the idea here was to have these levels work with the online mode, since people's ghosts would be able to help you find where you have to go. Oh, what's that? Little Timmy didn't pay for Nintendo Switch Online?
Suffer.
But yeah, I don't think that's very interesting either. At that point, there's no challenge since you just follow people to the end. No matter how you look at these levels, they just kinda suck, so I would have rather them be replaced with something else. But the last nitpick I have before we move to the comments is easily the biggest. Everything I've mentioned so far is pretty small, but this problem is one that I legitimately think brings the game down quite a bit. That problem would have to be with the bosses. For years, people were begging for the Koopalings to be removed since they were basically the only bosses in the new Super Mario Bros. Series since Wii. Well, you got your wish. There are now literally only 5 boss fights in the game, 4 of which being Bowser Jr. and the other being the final Bowser fight. This is one of the lowest boss counts in the entire series, and as someone who has always enjoyed the boss fights, this is really disheartening. Now yes, Bowser Jr. does change a bit between the fights, but aesthetically, they all just feel too boring and samey. The reason people wanted the Koopalings removed was so that they could get some actual variety, not because they just hated them as characters. Okay, maybe there's like one icky Koopa hater who wanted to kill them all. But now that they're gone, they got replaced with basically nothing. Mario Wonder had so much potential for bosses, seeing how creative the rest of the game is, but for some reason, they just didn't even try. We know from interviews that this game wasn't rushed, and the rest of the game shows that, but these boss fights are so weak that it almost felt like the game was rushed. I mean, Mario Wonder might just have the worst bosses in the series outside of the NES and Game Boy titles. Even then, Mario 3 probably has it beat too, and I do not compliment Mario 3 very often. I have not heard a single person say that the bosses in this game are good, and people have been praising this game a ton. Heck, some worlds just don't even have a boss. You just sort of get the royal seat at the end for doing literally nothing. How cool. This is the only element of the game that's holding it back from being easily the best 2D Mario for me. It still might be regardless, but I can't say it's free when the other great ones have actual boss fights. So yeah, I don't think it's controversial to say that I really hope the next 2D Mario game has much better bosses than this. But now it's time we look at all of your nitpicks from the comments, and let me just say, you all had a lot. Again, keep in mind that these nitpicks are just the ones I found to be the most interesting, and not necessarily the ones I agree with. With that being said, I definitely agree with this first one here. Soul Saturn says, only allowing one save file per user is so frustrating, and I'm shocked Nintendo made it that way. I 100% meant to include this with my nitpick section, but I forgot before reading the comment, so I guess it's your lucky day, Soul Saturn. Yeah, this is literally the first thing you see when you start the game, and it's really stupid. I mean, there's just no reason to have done this at all. Take Mario Odyssey for example. That game lets you have 5 save files per user, so basically 40 save files per Switch. Mario Wonder only lets you have 1 per user or 8 per Switch. Mario Odyssey is a much bigger game than Wonder, so I really don't see any sort of justification for this at all. Continuing on with save file stuff, XComp says, there should be a New Game Plus where you have all the badges unlocked so you can do a full run with whatever you like. I wouldn't necessarily say the game not having this is a problem, but it would be cool to have, especially for speedrunners to always start with the Jet Run badge. Though of course I'd only want this if each user could have multiple save files. One area of the game that I got a lot of comments about had to do with the game's playable characters. Lewis FNAF Edits 8 says, FNAF, awesome. I think it would be cool to have an option to play as Yoshi without the no damage taking mechanic. This wasn't a problem for me personally since I'm a Mario main for life, but I can certainly understand why some Yoshi players would get upset by this. I think they definitely should still make Yoshi invincible by default, that way there's at least 4 baby mode characters for local multiplayer, but giving an option to also let them play normally would have been nice. Our next comment comes from David, where they said, it's pretty weird that Red Toad still hasn't been a playable character in a mainline Mario game. It would have been really cool to see him finally make an appearance in Wonder. I think in this title especially, it's very strange that he isn't here. In games like New Super Mario Bros. Wii, it's clear that each of the 4 characters were meant to have a completely distinct color, and Red Toad would have clashed with Mario. In Wonder though, several characters overlap colors. Peach and Toadette are both pink, Luigi and Yoshi are both green, and Yellow Toad and Yellow Yoshi are both orange.
Oh wait, that's not.
So I really don't see any reason for them to not have him in the game now. For our last playable character related one, Panthers Gaming Session YT says, there should be a mode where each character actually has their signature abilities, i.e. Luigi's Flutter Jump, Toad's Speed, Peach's Float, etc. I think it should only be a mode however because not everyone would want their favorite characters to have weird mechanics. This is actually going to be the first one I disagree with, which I imagine is a slightly controversial take. While character exclusive gimmicks can be sort of cool, there are a few problems with them. They generally also come with downsides, which may mean that someone's favorite character is just not fun to play. I feel so sorry for Wario fans playing Mario 64 DS. On top of that though, there's just so many characters now that coming up with exclusive things for all of them would be pretty tricky. It'd also probably lower the player count as well, and I'd much rather have more characters. Most importantly though, they adapted pretty much every previous ability into a badge, which I think is pretty smart. Luigi's Flutter Jump is there, you can increase speed like Toad, and you can even sort of float like Peach. Moving this stuff to badges, I think, is a much better way of handling it. F13 says, I have very few nitpicks about the game, but I do wish Kamek was utilized more, considering he's a staple and appeared in the opening cutscene. Yeah, I was honestly really surprised with how little he's used in the game. He only appears to randomly spawn in the airship levels, and that's pretty much it. You never fight him, which is bizarre seeing as he has been a boss several times in the past. He doesn't even play a part in powering up the bosses like previous games, since they just use Wonder Flowers now. Considering this game already has a really bad boss problem, giving Kamek a fight would have at least helped a little. Speaking of those airships, Sergio Neto says, when Kamek is summoning an airship in the overworld, Toadette is smiling. Yeah, she's a maniac, what do you expect? The Mario King 1873 says, I was honestly a bit disappointed with the badge turnout. Like, I feel like half the badges are completely nullified by others. I can sort of get where you're coming from with this one, though I don't fully agree. Yeah, there definitely are some weak badges like the coin ones from before, but I feel like the rest do serve a purpose. Some of them do cover the same areas, but each of them do it in a different way. Take jumping for example, there are 4 jumping badges with the crouch jump, floating jump, timed jump, and spring feet. While each of these let you jump higher, they each do it in a different way, and I have heard people prefer different ones. Personally, I like the timed high jump best, but some others prefer the floating high jump. I think having all these options is kinda cool as it lets everyone find the perfect badge for them. Bishop Nickel says, I wish some new enemies got used more. There are more than 13 new enemies that only appear in one stage. Also was super excited for Missile Megs after seeing them in the trailer, only for them to appear in like 3 levels. Personally, in my playthrough, I never felt an enemy was underutilized. I think reserving certain enemies for only 1 or 2 levels can make those levels stand out way more than they otherwise would have. I do definitely get why you may want to see more of them though, because the enemies in this game are really cool. Weege says, aside from bosses, one of my nitpicks is the lack of power-ups. There's only 4 actual power-ups if you don't count the star or mushroom. It wouldn't hurt to add a bit more power-ups whether it be old or new ones. It did feel pretty strange for Wonder to have so little power-ups compared to previous games. Granted, I do think all 4 of these power-ups here are really good, whereas past games had a decent amount of stinkers, but it still felt a bit odd for there to be so little. Part of that is of course due to the Wonder effects sometimes acting like power-ups of their own, but I would have liked at least 1 more new power-up. What I'm saying is please bring back the ice flower. Happy Rusty 368 says, my nitpick is that there's only 4 stickers online. It should have been done like Mario Party Superstars where you can use coins to unlock more stickers. The purple flower coins would be perfect for this, as right now they feel a bit underutilized. Personally, I didn't do much of anything with online, so I didn't really care about the stickers, but I decided to include this because it's legitimately a good idea for how normal coins could be used. This would solve both the coins being useless problem and the lack of stickers problem, so it's a really good solution. Also, this has nothing to do with the video, but I saw your profile picture and I got reminded of the stupid Story of Undertale song and now it's stuck in my head. Please help me. Snowpuff says, I was hoping that the talking flowers would be a different color depending on what world you're in, considering the badge training courses have red talking flowers, and it's kind of weird that that's the only case where they're a different color. This isn't something I necessarily had a problem with, but yeah, it would be kinda cool if they changed colors more. I'm not sure if I want them to change for every world since I do like the yellow color a lot, but maybe making them blue underwater or something would have been neat. Creeper King says, Bowser was not hot enough. I have absolutely no opinion on this matter, but what I can tell you is that Bowser was definitely cool enough. Frosty Pasta says, one nitpick is how the special world is unlocked for World 3 and 5. I wish the way to the special world were in actual levels, instead of just going back to the location where you get the Royal Seed. Yeah, so if not requiring us to fight a boss wasn't enough, these levels also make us go back to them for literally no reason. In World 3, the Royal Seed is just given to you in a Poplin house, and after you collect it, you then have to go back into it. When you do, you just instantly unlock the secret world level for World 3, no extra challenge required. This, again, just makes the game feel rushed when it definitely wasn't. Could they not think of another level to hide a secret exit in or something? The same goes for World 5, but this time you have to play a mini level first. All you have to do though is get to the end, exactly like you did the first time, and you unlock the special world. This is genuinely a baffling decision, and I'm really surprised they did this. But no decision is quite as baffling as the last comment nitpick for this video. As many of you all in the comments pointed out, there is no Batman in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. He'll be in there next time, guys. Just keep believing. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you really hate Kamek and hate me for saying he should have been used more? Let me know in the comments. Wonder is definitely a really weird game for me. It takes so many steps forward, but it also has some baffling leaps backwards as well. Overall though, I still love this game and I'm having a lot of fun planning out and making videos on it. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.